Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Aranda Buford. I'm the Director of Communications for Upper Darby School District. Today, the Upper Darby School District joins school district members of the PA League of Urban Schools in a simultaneous press conference and a show of solidarity across the state to call for increased funding for public education and also robust charter reform. We've invited you to this press conference to provide you with an opportunity to hear directly from superintendents of challenges that they are uniquely facing and disproportionately facing in urban education settings. Students in urban education need special support. And if they're given that and provided that, they can excel to even greater excellence, because look at what we are doing with little. If we're able to do that, we can help them to achieve their dreams. They can have the futures that we all pray for when it comes to our kids. As a former teacher and a former school principal in urban education, and also I worked for this lovely man for 5 years as Director of Communications, I am pleased that you took the time out of your schedule to hear and support this most urgent message and call to action. So this morning, you will hear from Christopher Dormer, the Superintendent of Norristown Area School District. He is also the President of Plus Caucus of PASA. You will also hear from Dr. Daniel McGarry. He is the Superintendent of Schools for Upper Darby School District. You will hear from Dr. Tony Watlington, the Superintendent of School District of Philadelphia. Dr. Brenda G. Winder, Superintendent of Southeast Delco School District. Dr. Craig Parkinson, Superintendent of Chester Upland School District. And Christopher Dormer, again, Norristown. They will talk about the funding implications of fair funding. And also we have the student perspective here. Our lovely students, Khalid Dulat and Selma Gorfa, they are our student school board representatives. They speak very strongly for what our students need, and we are really here to hear from the kids. They're the ones that we're really here to hear from. So without further ado, after Mr. Brown comes up, you will have an opportunity to ask questions, the press and general audience members. And we're going to ask Superintendent Dormer to the stage. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today in Upper Darby. Thank you to Superintendent McGarry and the entire Upper Darby team. I'm happy and proud to return to the building here at Upper Darby High School. I've spent 13 of my 27 years in public education to share today's message with you. So it's good to be home. I'm Christopher Dormer. I'm the proud Superintendent of Schools of the Norristown Area School District and the President of the Pennsylvania League of Urban Schools, the Plus Caucus of PASA. Today, at 5 different locations across this Commonwealth, our 29 member districts stand united for the over 300,000 students across Pennsylvania who attend our schools. Each and every student in every school deserves to be known by name, by strength, and by story, so that we, the adults, can best elevate each and every student to the very best and brightest of futures. It is those 300,000 students who attend our schools for whom we wish to speak today. Each who have been underfunded and underserved in our districts for far too long. Today, we put faces to our story. So I want to share the story of Estefania, who's a first grade student in the Norristown Area School District. She is a Latina and one of 140 students identified as an English learner at her school. At that school, there are just 3 English language development teachers to service 25 classrooms across 5 grade levels at that school. All told, in the Norristown Area School District, we have over 1,550 English learners, a population that has grown by 104% over the past decade. But they are served by just 31 professional staff members. For those of you that are into math, that is a staff-to-student ratio of 50 English learner students for every 1 certified teacher, with that ratio going as high as 82 to 1 in one of our schools. I want to tell you the story of Christian, a 6th grade student, a black male who was born and raised in Norristown. Christian, in his entire academic career, has never seen a class size less than 27 students. While he is part of a sixth grade class that has 100 more students than any other grade across our district currently, he struggled to get more personalized attention he needs to be more successful in school. Finally, I want to share the story of Rebecca. Rebecca is a white female 8th grade student and was in kindergarten when the school funding lawsuit was originally filed. Her entire educational career has known nothing but going to Norristown Area School District schools that have been funded in an unconstitutional manner. The experiences of Estefania, Christian, and Rebecca are not unique to the students who attend, are not unique to students who attend underfunded school districts that have had to make difficult financial choices over the past 2 decades. Districts like Norristown have been forced to cut staff, curtail programs, and raise local property taxes to unsustainable levels just to survive. And rarely, if ever, over those 2 decades, have we been able to strategically invest to meet the needs of our students. Estefania, Christian, and Rebecca have been forced to make do with less because we have not had the funding to provide them everything they deserve. But let me share another story about what happens when you do accelerate funding to underfunded schools. Over the past 2 years, Norristown Area School District has received over $3.2 million from Level Up as part of an overall increase in state funding that we've received a little over $8 million additional dollars. This has allowed us to significantly reverse the trend of cutting positions over the past decade. Just these 2 years, we've added back 60 staff positions. I'm going to say that number again. In 2 years, with Level Up and the additional state funding, we've added 60 positions so that we can reduce class sizes at all levels, and we were able to hire reading specialists for the first time to serve our elementary schools. These additional financial resources also have allowed us to invest in additional instructional resources to focus on early literacy. So I'm happy to share another story, this time of 575 students currently in 2nd grade in the Norristown Area School District across our 6 district schools. Our mid-year assessment results have shown a 12% increase in the number of students reading proficiently at grade level compared to last year. This should not be a surprise to anyone. When districts have adequate resources to meet the needs of students, all students grow, learn, achieve, and master. And we're excited. This is what we can do in 1 year. Imagine what we can do when that funding is sustained and maybe even added to over the future years. I want to thank our newly elected governor, Governor Shapiro, for proposing the continued investment in our children by including increased education funding in his first budget. I will take him at his word, and I've met the governor personally, and I know he is a man of his word, that the proposed $1 billion increase across all line items in education is just a down payment towards fully funding our schools. In light of the recent court ruling, I implore him and all of our state legislature to expedite the work to fix education funding once and for all. I shared one example of the benefits of accelerating payments to underfunded school districts. Let's not have this year's kindergarten have to wait until 8th grade like Rebecca did in Norristown to see something get done. Plus, school districts need those additional funds and resources to arrive as soon as possible to meet the growing needs of our students. Despite the $8 million increases Norristown has received the past 2 budget years, we still remain underfunded by over $10 million annually. I implore the governor and all state legislatures, get to the table, deliver funding to schools in a way that is not only constitutionally sound, but will also morally, ethically, and practically make a difference in the lives of all students, all families, and all communities we live in. With that should come long overdue reform to Pennsylvania's charter school law and the way charter schools are funded. Over 92% of the 500 elected school boards statewide have adopted resolutions supporting reform to Pennsylvania's charter school law. If that doesn't say bipartisan support, I don't know what does. This isn't about choice. This isn't about competition. This is about a charter funding formula that forces the payment of cyber charter tuition and special education tuition significantly above the real costs that are incurred by charter and cyber charter schools to provide educational and specialized services. If corrected, these funds could allow for further accelerated investment in our underfunded public school districts. Today, all 29 member districts of PLUS share this message on behalf of Estefania, Christian, Rebecca, 575 second graders in Norristown, and the 300,000 students who attend our urban schools. Later today, colleagues in East Allegheny, Greater Johnstown, Lancaster, and Bethlehem area school districts will hold similar events to tell their stories of their districts, the way my colleagues from Upper Darby, Philadelphia, Chester Upland, and Southeast Delco will do here shortly. We're asking our governor and our elected state officials to increase education funding and to enact long overdue reforms to cyber charter and charter special education funding to allow every child in Pennsylvania to receive the very best education, because each and every school district will have what they need to provide the very best, regardless of one's zip code. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend and my colleague, Dr. Dan McGarry from the Upper Darby School District.
Thank you for coming to the Upper Darby School District today. Mrs. Buford, my Director of Communications, thank you for helping organizing this event. Thank you to Beth Trapani, who also helps with communications here for the Plus Caucus. And of course, to Chris Dormer, a longtime friend and former principal here at Upper Darby School District, for leading the Plus Caucus urban superintendents. Also, I would like to acknowledge the school board members here, the volunteers who serve our school boards, those who are joining us from Upper Darby School District, Norristown, Chester Upland, Philadelphia School District, and obviously Southeast Delco. It's an honor to host such an event here in Upper Darby. I hope you were entertained by the wonderfully talented teachers who brought our music and our musically talented students to the forefront of what we do here in Upper Darby. I've been discussing the topic of properly funding public schools in Pennsylvania for over 20 years. I provided numerous speeches, and I've been the character. Think about this for a second, me. I've been the character in a Public Citizens for Children and Youth PCCY play called The School Play in 2015. Here's what I know, and why I mention my history of advocating for proper funding of public schools in Pennsylvania. Almost 11 years ago to the day, I was involved in some of the most controversial budgetary cuts in the history of this school district. And I would argue some of the most controversial budgetary cuts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In the mid-2000s, and I want that to register with you, the mid-2000s, you'll see it on the screen as we go through, school boards throughout the Commonwealth, along with superintendents and business managers, were forced to cut and curtail programs. A fancy word, curtail programs. That's fancy for kids get less. During this time, the restrictions built within Pennsylvania's school code left you with very little options to balance your budget. You either raised taxes well above what local communities could afford, which often resulted in heated and contentious board meetings, or you were left with reducing critically important academically enriching opportunities for kids. In fact, it was not until around the mid-2017-18 year that the legislature amended Section 1124 and 1125.1 of the school code, allowing us to not have to furlough or curtail programs the way that we once did, and tell the truth that we were not funded, and that's why we had to reduce programs. I would argue that forced cuts and reductions of funding of public education, an increase in unfunded mandates that I'll show on the screen here in a moment, and the rise and expansion of charter schools, namely cyber charter schools, all significantly altered public education in Pennsylvania, maybe forever. I would argue that this downward spiral all started in the mid-2000s. On the screen, to my right, your left, I wanted to review just a few examples of what called on me to become such an ardent advocate for proper funding of public schools. You will see some historical context to what I've already attempted to highlight. From the 2010-11 school year until 2021, some of the most recent publicly available data, please take a look at this screen. The unfunded mandates have increased significantly over the last 11 to 12 years. And these are just a few of the unfunded mandates, not an unexhausted list of mandates that have added pressure and stress to our kids, our teachers, our community, and our school boards. Charter reform. At one time in Pennsylvania, we were reimbursed for some tuition costs of charter schools. The law changed, but the costs have increased. As of 2021 in Upper Darby, it's an increase of over $8 million to our budget in charter schools. Right now, as I stand in front of you, it's over $11 million going out to charter schools. The lack of charter reform is staggering. According to a recent report by Children's First, Pennsylvania spends more on cyber charter schools, close to $1 billion. $1 billion as of 2021. I'm dropping my papers, I'm getting excited. Pennsylvania spends the most out of the 27 other states that allow cyber charter schools. We spend the most. This is estimated to be more than 3 times the increase in basic education funding that was provided to every school district, all 500 as of 2021. 3 times more spent on cyber charter schools. We are required to pay the same amount of money to a cyber charter school as we would a student attending a brick and mortar school. We also know for sure that many of us have gone out to compete with cyber charter schools, and we could do it more efficiently and better than our rivals, yet there has not been any reform, the reform that Mr. Dormer just mentioned. Unfunded mandates continue. In Upper Darby, our special education programming continues to expand. We operate our own emotional support programs, life skills programs, multi-disabled and handicapped programs, autistic support programs, and other special education programs. We are required by federal law to provide a free and appropriate public education known as FAPE to our students. But once we were promised 40% federal funding for these programs, we only get 16% funding for special education. Mandates in Pennsylvania, again on the graph behind to my right, for Upper Darby, only highlight a few examples. The increase in unfunded mandates from 2010-11 to 2021 grew by $6.5 billion. Yet, the Commonwealth has only supported us around $2.8 billion. It's leaving us with a gap of $3.7 billion for local taxpayers to find a way to fill that gap. More locally here in Upper Darby, what does it mean? It means that our local taxpayers are left trying to fund a gap just based on the information you have here. Pension reform, cyber charter schools, right? Unfunded mandates with special education. Just in that alone, when you go left to right on the graph here behind me, you will see that we're underfunded by $12 million annually. When I add all the other unfunded mandates here in Upper Darby, it's in excess of $20 million a year. So who picks up those responsibilities and that stress? Local taxpayers, our teachers, and our kids. Back to the mid-2000s, and my theory that I hope you see playing out in the financial reality on the screen behind me. When school district funding and stimulus money was cut in the mid-2000s, staffing was cut and educational programs were reduced. Some educational programs never recovered. Cuts were made to areas deemed not required under Chapter 4. Essentially, what is mandated by the State Board of Education as important. We had to figure out how to work our way through that. Support such as reading specialists, family consumer science, elementary extracurricular activities, foreign language, social workers, and other much needed supports were reduced or curtailed, embedded in other subjects out of a necessity to balance a budget. When the cuts and reductions during the mid-2000s took place, the ramifications are what we face here today. Reduction in staffing and programming, along with changes to state certification systems, led to higher ed changes and a rapid decline in the teacher certification program. Here we are today. In mid-2000s, almost 700,000 folks were enrolling in education programs, with about 200,000 of them making it through the programs. You'll see on the graph a steady decline to 400,000 people enrolling in education programs, and yet 150,000 make it through. So from 2008 to where we are today, it's a 50,000 student decline in people getting into this workforce. The lack of respect for this profession, along with the lack of funding, has left Pennsylvania with a crisis that was easy to see coming, very easy to see coming. I stated during our last press conference in 2022, right in this very room, that we are facing our next crisis. We left the pandemic and we're walking into another one, a staffing crisis. We are now faced with the reality that many of our school classrooms are staffed with emergency certified teachers. So much so that we have more emergency certified teachers operating now than we do teachers graduating from a 4-year college properly certified to teach in our schools. Now, don't get me wrong. We're thrilled to have anybody switching careers. So this is a plug, get into education. But it's not what's best for kids to emergency certify someone and to throw them into a math, science, social studies classroom with students without the proper training. Not just anybody can be a teacher. It's a gift. That's why on our certification in Pennsylvania it says the art and science of education. Funding cuts of just 11 years ago have led to this moment, a lack of funding and cuts. We're currently holding this press conference in a room in our high school, a high school that supports over 4,000 students in 9th through 12th grade, right? We serve close to 2,000 English learners and over 90 different languages represented here in Upper Darby. That's a big deal, right? We also serve over 2,300 special education students. So here in Delaware County, when you take our English learners and our special education population, it's over 4,300 students. That's as large as some of our area school districts totally in Delaware County. Time and time again, public education has stepped up to meet every new challenge. Most recently, the pandemic. I've witnessed local school districts working together to share ideas and to partner with one another to open our schools and keep them open. I want to thank and take a moment to thank Dr. Maria Edelberg, a good friend of mine who's in the back of the room from the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. She helped our local superintendents work together and galvanize, share ideas, stay open, be open, and work together to share the best practices in education. I want to thank our school board members, again, who are here, who volunteer their time, countless hours. Can't tell you how many times I'm around in the public and people want to know how much a school board member makes. $0, right? I want to thank our principals that are in the room, our teachers, our union leadership, social workers, safety, security, guidance counselors, nurses, office staff, support staff, food service staff, and our parents. It takes a collective effort to do what we do here in public education. Before I turn this over to my colleagues, I just want to leave you with a few more details. As Mr. Dormer presented, we were given some money, a 2-year funding gap, the ARP and ESSER funding, and I think it's important that we highlight what we're able to do when we're funded properly. Right? The one-time funding and American Rescue Plan money here in Upper Darby School District has provided so much, right? I know that mental health will be discussed later by my colleagues, infrastructural improvements will be discussed, and safety will be discussed, right? But just look at what can be done with sustained funding. After-school programming, curriculum development, mental health service and resources. We have publicly shown, I know there's a rumor out there that what have school districts done with this money? Here in Upper Darby, we have presented it, we've talked to our parents, we can show you time and time again where we have spent the money. The problem is what happens when this money goes away? What happens when this money goes away? In anticipation of this press conference this morning, I came up with a fairly simple solution. I know the elected officials in this room want the best for our schools, and I witnessed firsthand how powerful educational leaders are when they work together for the students and the communities we all serve. Here's the simple solution. Let's work together and admit that public education is important and fund our schools. The money's there. Let's do it now. We are facing a crisis here in Upper Darby. Mark my words, a staffing crisis. There is a reason teachers and administrators are leaving public education, and that the number of young people interested in pursuing education as a profession, it continues to rapidly decline. Year after year, public educators have been asked to do more with less, yet they meet every new challenge. The overall lack of funding has left us facing perhaps our greatest challenge, and has nothing to do with test scores. If we do not act now and swiftly, we will not be able to staff our classrooms with highly qualified teachers who inspire our students to reach their fullest potential. In our district, we have a tagline. It's everywhere you go, and I talk about it all the time. Opportunity, unity, and excellence. Our goal in the Upper Darby School District is to provide the opportunity for all of our students to be unified in their ability and our ability to pursue excellence. Equitable allocation of education funding will assist in removing barriers so our talented and dedicated teachers can support students in reaching this goal. I've witnessed firsthand the power of collaboration. My hope is that we can continue to work together to put children and their needs first. Every child deserves an opportunity to reach their personal goals and attempt to make their dreams and aspirations a reality. We have the support of government officials, and if we get it and follow through on promised funding, we can do amazing things. I'd also like to thank Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro for support of public education, and we are hopeful that more funding is here to come. I'd like to welcome one of my colleagues to the podium right now, Dr. Brenda Winder from Southeast Delco. She'll talk to you a little bit about mental health supports.
Good morning. I am Brenda Winder, Superintendent of the Southeast Delco School District, and I would like to take a few moments to thank our legislators for their commitment to education and the various funds that we have received as a result of the pandemic. Our students have faced and continue to face trauma. At this time, I would just like to take a moment of silence for Fanta Bellitti, who lost her life at 8 years old due to gun violence in our 2021-22 school year, and to Anthony Alexander, who lost his life just a few months ago at 17 years old in this school year. As you know, death is always traumatic, but it's even more traumatic when our young people lose their lives to gun violence and to aggression. And in our district, we have faced so much trauma. Some of you have seen it on the news. Some of you have seen it in the newspaper. And day after day, our students are coming to school, not just with the pandemic, but all the trauma that they are facing. So we use some of our funding to provide social, emotional support and resources for our students. We've provided 3 social workers so that we would have 1 social worker per school, but that's not enough. We've added 6 coordinators of climate to work with our students on peer mediation, to show our students how to solve problems without aggression and violence, but that's just not enough. We've added restorative practices to our 7th through 12th grade classrooms and responsive classroom to our K through 6 classrooms, providing professional development for our staff, but it's just not enough. We've added 30 minutes of morning meetings for our students so that our staff can take all of the things they've learned and show them how to build relationships, because building relationships provides support and a way to resolve conflict without violence and aggression. But that's just not enough. We are grateful for the funding that we've received. However, we definitely need more, especially with the difficulties of our families being able to connect with the supports that are provided countywide, and we know that those supports are limited. Currently, each of our 1 to 8 schools have over 600 students, yet we only have 1 school counselor, and we know that optimal is to have 250 students per counselor, and we're at 1 for every 600 to 700 students, and I think we will all agree that's just not enough. Yes, we've taken the funding that we've been given and used it to provide as many resources as we can to increase our staff. We've increased our staff by 42 people, but yet it's not enough. So this list is not exhaustive, but it is evident that we need more funding. It is evident that we need that funding to be permanent to provide social, emotional support and resources for the well-being of our students. And I am looking to our legislators and our governors to meet the challenge to provide us with the funding that we need. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Craig Parkinson. I'm the superintendent of the Chester Upland School District. And first, I want to thank everyone for being here this morning and thank Upper Darby for hosting this event. It's extremely important. I'm extremely grateful to have a platform to be able to speak to everyone about the Chester Upland School District and all the needs that, I think I'm moving the slide. The guy who speaks with his hands. But, to speak to all the needs in the Commonwealth for all of our students and what's really needed. I'm actually 2 years into my tenure as the superintendent of the Chester Upland School District. Blessed to be here, extremely excited to have been given this opportunity. I left a school district that was known as being affluent, had all the resources that you could ever dream of, to come to a district where, to get paper and pencils and things for our students is a reality that we live in every day. I'm here to specifically speak to you about the facilities in charter schools that's significantly impacting our school district. In the Chester Upland School District, our newest building is 52 years old. It's the high school that was built, I believe, in 1972. You talk about renovations. We haven't had a building renovated in several years. So I want to first say I'm grateful for the ESSER dollars we received in the money from the federal government. But I also want to say that when we received that money, we had to make a choice. Where were we going to use this money? Was I going to use it on education, curriculum, to improve our facilities, to support social-emotional learning? There was so much that we needed to do with this money. I was faced with the decision, where do I spread the money out? So that was one of the greatest challenges that we've been faced in the Chester Upland School District. So obviously, we're using a lot of this money to support our facilities. In my previous world, in the previous district where I came from, I was never faced with having to close a building or close school because of air conditioning, because we didn't have HVAC. I face this every year. So right now, as opposed to developing plans, as we're doing it simultaneously, working on plans for education, I'm actually developing a plan on when it gets hot. What are we going to do? How am I going to craft a letter to send out to parents that have to close school? I can tell you, in a district where we've lost so much from learning due to the pandemic learning loss, I'm losing days of educating our students because I have to close school because it's too hot in a building. There's not enough ventilation. We have environmental concerns in many of our buildings. That is a challenge that, again, in my previous world, I never had to face. And I think sometimes people take these things for granted, that it's so good that you don't think about these things till you walk into an environment and every day you're worried about how do you keep your children safe, how do you make sure that they're in an environmentally appropriate place where there's an educational environment that's conducive to learning. These are the challenges that our students are faced with on a daily basis. That is something that I'm hoping one day I can not have to worry about that, not have to worry about how we're going to educate our children, if we're going to be able to put them in a building where it's cool enough in the summer, or we can heat the building in the winter. Those are challenges that we face as well. There's a point this year where I actually had to close a school day because the pipes are so old, the heating system is so old that it wasn't functioning. So we were faced with having to close the building again, another day of learning loss for our students. So when we talk about funding and resources, not just about buying computers and paper and pencils, it's about infrastructure. And if you don't have a building to appropriately educate children, how is it going to work? You talk about teachers, morale, and teachers want to come to a building. I know it's difficult to come to work each day where you're coming into an environment that just is not aesthetically pleasing. And this is where we're educating our children on a daily basis. And I would say as a parent, and this is what I said when I was in Harrisburg, I was blessed and fortunate to be at the governor's budget proposal. And one of the things that I focused on, as I've had the opportunity to speak to some of the state reps and senators, look through the lens as a parent. Would you want your child to be educated in this building? And if you're going to say no, why should other people have to educate their children in those buildings? That's the lens that we should look through for every decision that we make. So as we speak to the legislatures and all the people who make these decisions, I invite everybody to walk through the Chester Upland School District's buildings with me. Just spend a day with me walking through these buildings. And I can assure you there are some buildings that you would scratch your head and question, would I educate my child in this building? And I don't think it's fair that any parent should have to have that conversation or that discussion. I just don't think it's right. I think that, again, I'm grateful for this opportunity and this platform, but at the same time, I feel saddened that we had to sit here and beg practically for more money to do what's right, and that's educating the children. Every child should be afforded a good education, and it's not happening in my community that I serve, along with my colleagues. So I would say that please, as everyone is listening to us, please, as you're going through this educational reform, please think about the children that this is impacting. They don't deserve this. They deserve so much more, so much, an opportunity to be provided a future. So again, I invite anyone who would like to walk through the Chester Upland School District. It's an open invitation right now. I want to also speak to charter schools, which is significantly impacting our community. 43% of our budget goes to charter schools. So from the start, from day one, we're sending, if you have a dollar bill, you're sending 43 cents of your dollar out the door immediately. So you're asking us to provide our children with FAPE, a free and appropriate public education, on close to half of the money that everyone else is receiving. So it's not impossible, because the teachers, the administrators, we're finding a way to make that happen. But I can't imagine, again, in the previous world, there was reserves. When we ran out of money, there was places to go to get money to say, well, we'll use this reserve. And a reserve does not exist in the Chester Upland School District. It doesn't happen. I can tell you, my Tuesday morning meetings with my business manager, we're sitting having conversations about who can we hold off on paying so that we can make sure we pay this individual or this group so that we can keep the lights on and things of that nature. Again, no school district should have to deal with that. But again, if 43% of our budget from day one is going out the door to charter schools, obviously something is not right. And again, as my colleagues have spoken about charter school reform, I'm going to stand here before you and ask for the same thing, that we definitely take a peek at that and make some adjustments for the betterment of our children. And that's our tagline in the Chester Upland School District. Everything we do should be through the lens of what's in the best interest of the children who we're serving. And I'm concerned because there are times where I don't feel like that is happening. So I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, because I am grateful for the money we received. But at the same time, it's extremely important that we recognize that more funding is needed to strengthen the school districts and to give these children a fighting chance. When you talk about just repetitive poverty, where it's just something that happens, generational poverty, year after year, generation after generation, how are we going to ever correct this problem if we don't make the adjustments that are needed? We all know what we need to do. Everybody knows what needs to be done. But my concern is that we do a lot of talking about it, and we don't put the action behind it. So let's make this happen for the children and the entire Commonwealth. I want to thank you. I didn't bring any talking points, so it's dangerous, because you can go for days. So what I'm going to say with that is I'm just going to say thank you again for this opportunity, and that invitation is open to come visit the Chester Upland School District so you can see what's going on. Thank you. Next, Dr. Tony Watlington, Philadelphia.
Good morning. I am very proud and pleased to stand here with my colleagues from across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I want to take a moment just to echo what the superintendent from Chester just said. I appreciate your passion about school facilities. I worked in another state in 2 districts that 15 years ago stopped closing schools because of hot weather in the summer months. And I can assure you that both of those school districts were not Rockefeller rich. They made the investments necessary and figured out how to do it. We have similar issues in the school district of Philadelphia. I also want to echo what Superintendent McGarry said about that declining teacher pipeline, and we must treat that as a crisis. We absolutely must. Why? As Donna Cooper tells us all the time, that pipeline for teacher development is down by 66% in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's down by greater than 50% nationally. And why is that so important? We've done research for 50 years in this country, and it's crystal clear, Superintendent McGarry, you know this, that the single most important factor in student learning, student academic attainment, is a highly qualified, well-supported, stable teacher over time. And if that pipeline is down by 66%, the answer is absolutely not to just get more people on emergency licenses, although we appreciate people taking the interest in getting into education. On to why I'm here today to speak specifically about the issue of school safety. We must win this war on gun violence in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and in the city of Philadelphia and the school district of Philadelphia. 18 young people, 18. I wish we could put their pictures up here this morning. 18 young people in Philadelphia in the school district lost their lives to gun violence this year. Just this year, school year. And more than 80 have been impacted by gun violence in terms of shooting experiences. We've had issues where bullets have penetrated school buildings that were occupied by students and staff. Earlier this year, we had a shooting near a school, and this is absolutely heart-wrenching. I was in the middle of a school board meeting, and some teenagers ran into a school building in the late evening that was experiencing some after-school programming to get help after they were victims of gun violence. So what that said to me is, symbolically, our schools are safe havens and continue to be some of the safest places inside of school buildings. And we must do better, not just in Philadelphia, but in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Needless to say that this senseless violence is significantly impacting our young people and their ability to learn. Now, despite all these egregious acts of violence, our schools continue to still be safe havens for our students. And I want to commend Governor Shapiro for the $100 million in his proposed budget for school safety and security grants. I think that's really important. Our school board president, Reginald Streeter, and myself had the opportunity to meet with Governor Shapiro in Harrisburg. He also came to Philadelphia, and we spent a morning in a school talking with the principal and a group of teachers about these issues. Why is this so important? A, we must win this war on gun violence. B, in Philadelphia, it's important, just like in our colleague districts, it's important for us to have the investments that we need around things that we know work. For example, we want to increase our Safe Path programs, where we pay individuals, citizens in the city, to help watch over our young people to make sure they have safe passage to and from school, particularly for those students who walk to and from schools. Currently, we have a total of 14 school communities where we're using this initiative, and we want to expand because it's needed in other places. In addition to that, we want to significantly increase our school safety zones where we are paying armed, uniformed police officers to be in school communities from the morning when kids are coming to school to the late afternoon until our kids leave and get home. We had the unfortunate situation where we had kids who, a student who was shot and killed, and all that student was doing was participating in an after-school football activity, leaving the football field, walking back into the school building, and was a victim of senseless violence. There's a face for each and every one of these students, and there's a story for each and one of our lost scholars. We must win this war on gun violence, and we must do a better job funding our schools. I'm so pleased to hear about the outcome, or at least the initial steps in the fair funding case, and we know exactly what to do with the additional resources that all of our historically underutilized, underfunded school districts will receive at some point. I want to underscore that. These superintendents know exactly what to do with additional funding, number one. Number two, we are committed to being good stewards of the public tax dollars. And number three, we absolutely look forward to the opportunity to continue to share with the public across this Commonwealth the return on investment that you are getting for the dollars and that you'll get for the increased dollars. We also know that we need to increase surveillance cameras, alert systems, and we've got to invest more in school safety staff. This is absolutely important and critical. Equitable funding is needed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and so we certainly want to encourage Governor Shapiro and all of our legislators, Democrats and Republicans, to do what's right and fund the children, fully fund the children of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much.
We have three very important speakers that are near and dear to Upper Darby School District. Before we turn that and conclude with our board president, Ed Brown, who's with us here, we're going to have two of our student reps, Khalid Dulat and Selma Gorfa, talk to you. They represent the school board. They give monthly reports, and they want to briefly talk to you what it's like having gone through the Upper Darby School District as students. Selma, Khalid.
Good morning. Hope you guys are having a good morning. I know this is super long press conference, but my name is Khalid Dulat. I'm a senior at the Upper Darby High School, and I'm also the school board representative for the 2022-2023 school year. Throughout my years as a student at the Upper Darby School District, the talk of underfunded schools was a common topic. Growing up, I was surrounded by excellence through extracurriculars thanks to my older siblings, and I followed in their footsteps, being as involved as I could. I participated in school activities such as band, orchestra, and choir, yet it was common to see my directors cut corners and try to find ways to help every student experience music to their fullest potential. I found this epiphany again when I did track and field, as seeing my coach have to rotate track-specific equipment with students who couldn't afford them. The schools I attended in my district were struggling environments as well, especially with the teachers who taught with limited resources. Then I asked myself, why are the teachers, staff, and students responsible to look upon themselves to find ways to work around these issues? As I sought out for answers, I found similar situations throughout our school district and found an attitude shared with students and teachers alike. We have a hunger for excellence, and through every hardship, our students and teachers look adversity in its eyes and prove it wrong time and time again. That pandemic was one of the biggest disruptions in public education, yet our school district responded with initiatives, counseling groups, and outreach programs to help better our students' lives as people. This was our first step towards a better school district, but we hit the ground running. I participated in many meetings and speeches to advocate for fair funding, but as these conversations were happening, the decline of new teachers entering the profession was steadily increasing. We knew we had to act upon this quickly and with due diligence. So at the beginning of the year, a focus group consisting of our superintendent, Dr. McGarry, our high school principal, Dr. Alloway, and a group of high school students ranging from freshmen to seniors developed an initiative that would be in a pipeline for students wanting to become teachers through a program that we would fund and develop. This initially started as a high school mentoring program for students to help other students who were struggling academically and socially. And this was it, a program that would help solve many of our underlying issues within our school district. As I've said in many conversations I've had about fair funding, our teachers are responsible for the new generation of children who will eventually integrate themselves into our society. But as a society, we choose to limit our teachers' resources. It is our duty as a state to help teachers and the students reach their fullest potential and help society as a whole. And we will not stop until every student, no matter about their race, religion, color, creed, or sexual orientation, gets the education they deserve. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak with you today, and I hope to see a better and brighter future for our school district.
Good morning. My name is Salma Gorfa, and I'm a senior and one of the class of 2023 student board representatives. I've been an Upper Darby student since my days in the kindergarten center, and I truly mean it when I say I love this district, my peers, and the staff in this wonderful community. As a student board rep, I've been able to visit and tour almost all of the Upper Darby schools. Our teachers and staff have been going above and beyond to ensure their students' needs are met, and that's been especially difficult to reach, especially since COVID-19 hit. We've been able to see so many new programs and initiatives implemented that allow our teachers to connect with their students on not only an academic level, but a social, emotional, and psychological level. In some of our kindergarten and elementary schools, I've seen teachers introduce calming corners into their classes that give young students a chance to address their feelings and regroup in a healthy way in the classroom. I look at things like this and think back to when I was in elementary school and how far we've come. I could go on and on about all the amazing things that our district does for our students, but then I'd be here all day. The downside to seeing such wonderful things take place is when students and staff have new ideas for ways we can make our community a better place, but we don't have the resources to fund these ideas or put them into action. I can only wonder what things would be like for us if we had the resources to reach our full potential as a school district and community. As most of you know, our district, along with many others in Pennsylvania, are severely underfunded, and some of our amazing programs that are offered are constantly in fear of being cut due to inadequate funding. Our district is extremely diverse population of students, with over 90 languages being spoken across our schools. To meet the needs of every student in such a population, we cannot do the bare minimum. Families in our community are already struggling, and they don't deserve to have their taxes raised every year just for their children to be able to have a quality education. A student's quality of education shouldn't be negatively impacted just because they're part of a marginalized population. Our students' athletic programs, art programs, music programs, clubs, and groups are all severely underfunded and sometimes at risk of being cut altogether. These are the extracurriculars that encourage and help instill the importance of education in our community. We're able to allow students to discover new talents and interests they may have through all of our extracurriculars. Some of the students that struggle academically may use these programs that we offer to motivate them to come to school and learn. Instilling the importance of education and learning is vital for us to be able to grow as a community and ensure that our future generations prosper and do great things. The key to being able to do this is giving our staff and our students the proper resources to be able to help our students reach their full potential. Thank you.
They are professionals, really a great job. Khalid has actually spoken to the U.S. Secretary of Education in the past and let him know what he thinks. I'm going to turn it over now so we can close out, before we bring our choir to come in. Our board president, who is a proud parent, 3 children involved in the school district, 2 graduates, 1 well on their way. He's been the board president here in Upper Darby School District, Ed Brown. He's been a home and school president, very involved, very proud. We're very proud and very lucky to have him. Ed Brown, president of Upper Darby School District.
As you can see, we have wonderful students in our district. Khalid and Salma certainly represent that, so thank you for that. Thank you for this opportunity to address you today. My name is Ed Brown, and I stand before you as the proud president of the Upper Darby Board of School Directors. I bring you a message on behalf of my 8 colleagues, several of which are here today, that serve with me on the board. We want everyone to know that we are fortunate and grateful to be elected to serve in our positions, and we take our role very seriously. We take an oath when we are sworn in to lead responsibly, govern effectively, plan thoughtfully, evaluate continuously, communicate clearly and ethically, and act ethically. One of the most important tenets is to advocate earnestly for a thorough and efficient system of public education. Serving in this capacity is a labor of love because the children in our community deserve nothing but the very best education that we can provide. Do you know what has made that responsibility much harder? Fair funding. The key word in that phrase is fair, not more, just fair. The Upper Darby School District is underfunded, as you heard Dr. McGarry say, by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by over $20 million a year. That is not an insignificant amount of money. $20 million goes a long way, I'm sure we can all agree. Despite this ever-increasing shortfall, we do our concerted best to educate our children, improve our facilities, and handle increasing enrollment as best we can. We try to be good stewards of the financial resources no matter the amount. We also are cognizant of the burden on our taxpayers who have to foot the bill in order for us to meet our financial obligations. Raising taxes exponentially or even incrementally is no longer an option to cover the fact that the state has been operating in an unconstitutional manner. It is no longer acceptable for the school board of directors in Pennsylvania to have to make hard decisions such as how much to raise taxes or what programs should be cut. The time to fix this is now. Judge Jubilero said so. In a 786-page decision, Judge Renee Khan Jubilero ruled that the petitioners presented manifest deficiencies between the high wealth and low wealth school districts with no rational basis for the funding gaps. I believe that the judge ruled this way because Pennsylvania's Constitution states that the General Assembly must provide a thorough and efficient system of public education to serve the needs of the Commonwealth. That is not what has been happening up to this point. We know the public education works. We know that the Upper Darby School District education system works. My proof are my own children. My oldest son currently works for a Fortune 500 company. My younger son will graduate from Widener University in May, magna cum laude, and will be well positioned for a bright future. My freshman high school daughter will study law at Stanford University in a program this summer. All of them flourish and thrive based on the public education that they received in the Upper Darby School District. This is no different than the excellent teaching and learning that is taking place in school districts across the Commonwealth, as you heard about. I've been asked to do the call of action. Here it is. Now that we have the law on our side, let's hold our elected officials at the state level accountable. I believe that our Governor Shapiro, wants to do what's right and do what's constitutional and develop a funding solution that is sustainable, fair, and equitable for all. I know that our state representatives understand the importance of fixing years of financial neglect to give all students an equal chance to succeed. Where you live or the wealth of the area you live in should never again determine the quality of your education. It's far past time to put all the money allocated by the state through the funding formula, which will, and I repeat from our state constitution, provide a thorough and efficient system of public education to serve the needs of the Commonwealth. In conclusion, thank you to the 6 school districts, including our neighbors in the William Penn School District, the School District of Lancaster, Panther Valley School District, Greater Johnstown School District, Shenandoah Valley School District, and Wilkes-Barre Area School District, the Pennsylvania Association of Rural and Small Schools, the NAACP Pennsylvania State Conference, and the families whose children attend underfunded and under-resourced school districts in their various districts. Your collective courage got us to this point. We will join you to get the ball over the goal line. Call me an optimist, but I can only imagine the heights that our students will ascend to and the milestones that they'll reach once they get their fair share. Can you? Thank you.
Before we close, Upper Darby is a pretty special place. We have a lot of talented people in the room. We have a supervisor of art, theater, and music in the back, Mr. Christopher Lashley, who's done a lot of work entertaining you this morning. Mr. Bayshore, who's our choir and music teacher here at the high school, and Mr. Doug Ballard that was out with our students when you were entertaining. We're going to have our students send you out with a message, a little musical message here. Mr. Bayshore? We're going to open it up to any questions if anybody has any. Thank you, everybody.
In the mentality of a lot of people, if you're gaining, others are losing.
Pennsylvania, last I checked, is sitting on a $12 billion surplus. There's plenty of money for everybody. It's just, I'm 10 to 12 million underfunded, Dan's 20, Craig probably needs 100 million, you know? It's just, the money's there, get it to us as quickly as possible. You know, that's really the call. Governor Shapiro talked about a down payment. Get to the table and let's get the money to us sooner rather than later. I know when the fair funding trial result came out, I was asked to go speak in an event in Pottstown, and I was in a room of high school kids. And I apologized to them. I said, this was 11th grade AP kids, and I said, I apologize that we have failed you because we've allowed a system to perpetuate your entire academic career where you've had to do with less. So the call is, the money's there, let's get it divvied up, let's get it pushed out so the kids don't have to suffer for another generation.
The only thing I'll add to that is, and I wanted to comment on this today, but I left it out. This is an ecosystem, right? You're familiar with ecosystems. If sharks get killed out, what happens to the rest of the ecosystem? You know, you do too much to one particular part of an environment, the rest of the environment hurts. You know, over years of working with Chris and superintendents in Philadelphia and Chester, when another school district suffers, especially here locally in Delaware County, right? If Philadelphia struggles, it makes its way into William Penn, Chester, Interborough, right? Ridley School District. It makes its way into Upper Darby, Pete, where you are in Havertown, right? If we want the ecosystem to thrive, you've got to make sure all parts of the ecosystem are treated the right way. Otherwise, it will ultimately make its way into all the public schools in surrounding areas. And I think for a long period of time, the attitude has been, until it happens in my community, I don't care what happens there. Well, you can no longer afford to take that approach, right? We're stuck in a system where it's the virtual Hunger Games. We're robbing from each other to survive. You know, Craig and I shouldn't have to try to steal teachers from each other. Norristown, Philadelphia, William Penn. That's not an appropriate system, right? And now we're left, as Khalid just talked about, Upper Darby's trying to create its own system to staff its schools. That should be handled a much larger, grander way. And I think that lack of funding is there, but it's an ecosystem. If these schools, and if anybody here is listening or that's out there in your other surrounding wealthier school districts, it is a matter of time. People know what good education is, teachers know where that is, and they will want to go and seek that out. So why not fix it where it is so the whole ecosystem thrives? That's my concern with everything.
Superintendent, I think in the lawsuit they indicated that 428 of the 500 school districts were underfunded.
Yep.
So that's nearly, 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. Could you remind us what it said the amount of underfunding was likely to be? Do you have that figure?
So right now, based on the mandates that we have, we're over 3.7, 3.8 billion in underfunding. Across the Commonwealth. You know, the gap was about 2.8 that I provided before. The unfunded mandates have increased over 6.7 billion. So obviously, there is money to be had for that to happen. I think that's the case. The other part, Donna, that's a good question is, if we do fund these things, because I don't see any federal relief from the IDEA, the federal law on special education. We just had a recent Supreme Court ruling where the law is becoming even more strict on public schools. We could be seeing legal bills, $800 an hour straight to the federal government in processing special education, $800 an hour. So I don't see any reform in special education coming anytime soon, but what helps that? Better staffing and funding. Kids' needs can be met in kindergarten, in first grade. And if that happens, we can curtail escalating costs in those other programs, maybe without having to have substantial special education reform. Give the kids what they need early enough when they're young enough, and we can. It'd be wonderful in Upper Darby if we could find full-day kindergarten. And we're going to try to push for that somehow, some way, or preschool, right? If we know we can invest there, those other costs can maybe go down, and that money can inevitably go and fund where the gap is right now, internally. But what people don't want to do is pay today to take care of tomorrow. Because education is not like other trades where you can possibly see an immediate fix for what's in front of you. It takes years. It takes years to see a Khalid grab the microphone and speak today after being nervous years ago to want to publicly speak at all. Look what teachers have done for kids like that. And that's the investment I think we're asking for. And everything that you heard about, all the reform, all the proof that's out there, all the research, a good teacher in front of kids is a game changer. It is factually a game changer. Why do we argue about that? Why do we argue that getting kids to read in third grade reduces kids going to jail? It's all out there. So invest on the front end for a much better savings on the back end. At least for me, it's common sense stuff. And yet it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
Just
Yeah, I
want to
know,
be
Maddie, how are you?
good. Thanks. How are you?
Good.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying that are you not asking for all basic education funding to be run through the fair funding formula? And if not, I mean, if you're saying this isn't about taking money from some districts and giving it to others, and I guess if you're not asking for that, I'm wondering if there's anything that your caucus is asking for specifically about the distribution.
I know the level up funding last year was a huge help to the school district. I'm not so sure some of the antiquated aspects of the basic education funding formula will benefit school districts of Upper Darby, but we are asking for increased funding that's there. And if we can right now, over time, continue to bite off and get to where we are, I would prefer more increase to the level up funding like we had last year. Chris?
No, hi Maddie, good to see you. No, I agree with Dan. Certainly, we are very cognizant of our needs, which are significant. $20 million, $10 million. Craig's is probably in the order of that. The school district of Philadelphia, I think, is in the order of magnitude that I think we can't even fathom. I don't want to do that at the expense of any other child. I refuse to have that. So I think, when you see Governor Shapiro's call to the legislature of, let's get to the table and fix this. Sure, from an underfunded school district, does a fair funding formula look good? Yeah. Is it the right solution? Not so sure, because I will tell you that, in preparing for this, when the budget came out, I know Beth and I were very close to Beth Trapani, and thank you for everything, saying it up today. We were in close communication about what did this mean for the Plus Caucus, and I went and ran everybody's numbers. And I know the talking point was, Governor Shapiro, it's a 7.8% to Beth and a 7.8% to special ed. That's not how the money was distributed. And there were some of our members, and I'll call one out, Anywhere, Steel Valley, west of Pittsburgh, only got a 4% increase for a district that is probably as badly underfunded as we are. Where I think Dan and I made out a little bit better than that 7.8% increase.
Well, but locally here, other school districts that are wealthier got a higher percentage increase than Upper Darby did.
Right. So I think what we're saying is, look where the need is, drive the dollars there sooner, but again, the totality of the system needs to be fixed. Everybody needs more money to address all these. I called out Lower Merion. They have a significant increase in their student population. They're lucky that they have a tax base where they can, I don't want to say snap their fingers and generate it, where Dan and I can, but that's the difference there. Or if we don't get it from the state, my choice is I do without, or, oh, thanks, I could have done the podium, Dan and I. But my choices are simple, either do without, or I tax my community further into oblivion. And I can't do that. We can't do that anymore. Because at some point, we have great schools, places where people want to go, but we're at a tax threshold right now where if somebody wants to come to Montgomery County and they look at the tax burden to live in Norristown, they're probably looking somewhere else. That can't be. We've such an amazing experience with our diversity. That'll be experiences you'll get nowhere else. But if parents can't afford to live there, I don't know who's going to continue to come to our schools unless we get the funding so that we can minimally keep our tax level flat or actually start to return money back to our property tax, our homeowners by lessening their tax burden.
Do you think the fair funding formula is going to need to be modified, or that there's going to need to be this broader change you're describing to?
Maddie, there may be, but again, I think the fastest way, and I talked about it in my comments, and I'll let Dan say some words, or maybe Craig can talk about the impact too. The last 2 years, we wouldn't have been able to do what we've done in Norristown without the acceleration through Level Up. Because we were saying, here are the 100 most needy, we're gonna get money to you faster. I mean, like I said, that was $3.2 million for us. That was staffing positions. And again, to me, last year, that was the difference between hiring reading specialists and not. And my two board members are 2 seats down from me will tell you, we passed the budget with like this kind of winging a prayer of like, we want to do this, but we don't know, and like, here's sort of this weird borrowing plan if we don't. But like, we said, like, this money comes through, we get reading specialists there. 12% more of my second graders are reading proficiently than a year ago. That is not an accident. That's what funding translates to. Like Dan said, I now need the money to, that's great, we attack early literacy. I need the resources to attack the rest of my system. So, Craig, I don't know if Dan want to jump in.
Yeah, Craig, if you want to, for me, it continues, we're in the same boat. Like, how do you pass it? My CFO's in the back of the room, and we have this conversation and this debate all the time. I was a part of some of the most unbelievable cuts in the past that were built on one-time dollars. We couldn't talk about it that way at that time, 10 or 11 years ago. We had to go out there and act like this is what's good for education because you weren't allowed to talk about the funding reality, the financial reality. And so here we are today. We talk about, I want to add reading specialists to our budget. I need 4 to 5 EL teachers just to meet the needs of kids next year for our enrollment. Even if I could afford them right now, which we need the money, because education's been so disrespected, I don't know if I can find an EL certified teacher, a reading specialist. We want to add 7 reading specialists because we cut 15 to 20 of them 10, 11 years ago, but we are competing with each other for the same staff. So some of that money has simply gone to, and I see my UDEA membership in the back, and one of my school board members is here as well. We're putting into people and infrastructure right now as much as we can, rewarding our own people to keep them in the jobs. Keep them in the jobs and fix the infrastructure. We have almost $300 million in infrastructural needs. I agree with Craig. We have buildings from the 1920s servicing 700, 800 kids. No heating. The heating goes out. Air conditioning issues that we're trying to look at. We need space. So it's a complicated issue here in the school district, but Level Up was such a huge opportunity last year. It gave us an opportunity to say to our teachers, stay with us. We're in our first year of a contract. We're going to reward you for sticking with us. We have some teachers in our district that can go across the road, literally cross lanes down Avenue, and get upwards of $20,000 or more in their salary. How do you say to somebody, stay with us? Please stay with us, and they can get that dollar amount. I know, Craig, you're facing the same issues.
So yeah, in the Chester Upland School District, we are facing very similar issues. We love these guys, these are colleagues, but sometimes in meetings I have to shoot them with the side eye because they're taking our teachers. We lost in one district, one of our neighboring districts took 4 of our mathematics teachers this year alone. So I was faced with trying to find teachers, but we could not match what they were paying. This district offered them the years, their steps, just pretty much gave them the red carpet and rolled it out. So I'm looking at them like, I understand you have to go. So, what we have done with some of this money, we've actually tried to increase our steps and tried to improve the pay that we can provide our teachers. But to Dan's point, I think we need to revisit how we look at educators and professionals in our country as a whole. When you go overseas and you see how they treat their teachers, their educators, they're treated like lawyers, doctors, like professional staff. Our teachers at times feel disrespected, and I think are disrespected when you look at the amount of pay that they're giving. So I would say that as we are looking to attract more professionals in this profession, more teachers, I think you have to adjust the pay to these teachers, and we'll be able to keep them. I can tell you, in an urban school district, the Chester Upland School District, I have to find ways to entice people to want to come and work in this district. And when you have neighboring districts who are able to pay much more money, it makes it more challenging. So I think to create that equal playing field that we're all looking for, I think there's plenty to go around for all of us to eat. I just think that the funding structure just needs to be adjusted, and that's all we're asking for, and we can all be successful for our children.
I didn't want to go through this. We give a presentation every year on our staffing. We don't hide anything in Upper Darby. We tell the truth. We tell our staffing, our discipline. We put the information out there. This is interesting stuff. We're turning over 140 teachers from July to August. We have 22 open secondary positions right now. EL, special education, math. We're asking teachers to cover. Mr. Castertano's in the room right now. He's covering additional classes here at the high school for us as a business teacher, revered by kids, covering additional classes. He gets no prep, right? He's covering other classes. We're doing 3 instructional models to compete with cyber charter schools. Do our teachers love it? No. But if we don't compete, kids who want virtual learning, it's going to drain our budget. Right now, it's a race. We try to fill staffing right now. We post our jobs now. People announce their retirement, we've posted their jobs. We're already trying to fill those positions for the start of the school year. But picture if you make pasta, you fill that kind of cylinder up and it's got the little holes in it. You feel like, oh my gosh, it's the end of July, we're fully staffed. August hits, and Norristown takes some of our EL teachers and special ed teachers, which you did, which we're okay with. Right? So, or Lower Merion, or Radnor, or some folks are saying to teachers, what will it take to get you? We'll put you anywhere on your salary schedule. Mm-hmm. anywhere, and then what happens is you're insulting the current employees that you have. And I've been in many conversations with my union leadership. I'm like, look, we're just trying to keep it going for kids. We're not trying to insult you. But the reality is that's the game that we're in. 140 teachers from June until August, and we still have 22 secondary jobs open. At one time, we were 96% staffed. And then all of a sudden, boom, somebody recruits our teachers and takes them out the door. We give this information publicly. We do a public review. Our board expects it of us. Each year, we talk about what we're looking at. Why is this also difficult? We have 22 jobs open right now, and my staff wants to add 14 more in the next school year. Well, if I go to add 14 more and I don't get the fair level up funding, if I don't get level up funding, taxpayers have to cover those costs. The other issue is because education is so disrespected, I might ask for 14 teachers and ask for tax dollars to cover it, and what if I can't fill it? What happens then? So I have this debate with my curriculum instruction office. They say to me, we need 7 reading specialists, man. Like, we need it. Don't tell me no. We need it. But my attitude is, if I can't fill those 7, that's almost $750,000 added to a budget that might not go spent because I can't find somebody to do it. That's the other problem. That's why I said in the mid-2000s, it's like that chaos theory. A butterfly flaps its wings and something happens in another part of the world. Well, in 2010, the butterfly flapped its wings, stimulus money was cut, we cut programs, and look at what we're dealing with today. It's a direct relationship. No funding, no respect, no one's going into the profession. That's the problem. That's why we need this money across the board. And there needs to be more creative things. You can't ask kids to go to school for 4 years at $60,000, $70,000 a clip and come out making $40,000, $42,000, $43,000 a year and have to work a second and third job like all of us did when we became teachers. In Upper Darby, we're going to try to hire 30 high school graduates this year. We're going to pay them a salary. We're going to put them in our kindergarten center, and we're going to try to pay their way through college and ask them to stay as teachers with us. Right now, so far, someone's recruited 12 kids for me. She's got to get to 30. What other questions? I know we could go on and on. Do you have any other questions from us? Anything? Abby?
Just real quick, can you remind me, when does the federal pandemic aid run out, or when does that 20?
Yeah, Craig, do you want to go through all the details, or CFO with the money? 24-25 is when we have the last time to spend the ARP ESSER funding.
September 30th of 24.
Yeah, September 30th of 24, the 24-25 school year.
Obligated.
Yep. And there's limitations, set aside money and what you can spend for that application process. Again, there's an example. We're going to give you some money. There's a limited time to spend it. Everybody wants to fix HVAC. There's very few people that can fix HVAC in schools. So what are you going to do? We're all racing again for the same companies, the same resources to solve the same problems. I'm getting the Oscars hook. Anything else from anybody at all? I want to again thank Chris for leading this call. He's running a school district, but he's also the head of our urban superintendents group. We're a member of a lot of groups. We meet here in Delaware County. Craig and I are part of the Delaware County Superintendent Group. But we get together as monthly if we can to talk about what's going on. We share resources and best practices with each other. But it's a lonely, lonely world being a superintendent of an urban school district. So Chris, thanks for your leadership. Donna, thank you for your leadership all these years too. Thanks everybody for coming out today.